welcome, Professor Mitchell, and many thanks for your time. First, the first question I have is, women, the longest revolution. What do we mean by the longest revolution?
Well, just exactly what it says, that it's still a question that women are, as a generic group, totally oppressed. And oppression is very loosely used nowadays, but actually oppressed groups, if we use the word properly, are always in danger of being killed, basically. And that's I think, what the situation is with women. Many of us are much more privileged than that, but if you look globally, it's not the case. I mean, looking at a country like Iran or something, women are killed, imprisoned, murdered, for just wanting to not wear headscarves. I mean, you can look around the world and you'll see that it is a long revolution. Well, it's the longest revolution. I think it gives its own sort of impression. It is that femininity is always used as a sort of negative, and always you find that if you take something like boats going across the Mediterranean, you'll see that it's women and children who are in the bottom of the boat on the hold and are all drowned, and a few men escape, but basically it's all the women who are drowned, and the children with them, children with them. Probably if you did an analysis of Gaza at the moment, you'd find something very comparable. Women and children are just the murdered ones.
We're talking about a very long timescale here, then. I mean, this isn't when.
Ever. We're talking about forever.
Okay, and it's something that is. I think I read that you mentioned that it won't be resolved, but we can keep improving. Is that the case?
Oh, I hope it. No, I hope that we will resolve it. But I mean, one can't fight for something and not hope that it will actually change. And I suppose now that we've got the situation of global feminism, though we mustn't forget we've also got the situation of global anti-feminism as well, much more sort of fascism and right-wing attacks, which are very much have women at their centre point. So, of course, one hopes it'll change, and of course, one hopes it'll spread positively. And I think the sisterhood and the strength of sisterhood is the hope that we have.
Do you see any? This stems from an essay you wrote in the 1960s. Since when the situation has changed very much and very many times. What kind of? Do you see any progress in that in the time since? Any changes that affect your thesis, perhaps?
Yes, I think that I saw at that time, which what the 60s in England, 60s in Europe, were very liberating sexually with contraception and much more freedom for women sexually. And I think that I made that a big emphasis in that essay, because it was undoubtedly true for some people, but in fact it's probably one of the biggest traps there's been for women. That actually what happened was, I was looking at it with a little left-wing eye, sort of Marxist eye in some ways, and looking at it as though it was as though there was conflict between two groups, men and women. But it isn't conflict. It's in fact that the danger is that men and women are two the same, and men don't want that. They don't want women to be the same as men, and some women go along with that too, obviously. So there isn't a situation that's positive enough to say that we can look, it's going to be okay round the corner. It's not. But it's certainly something that we can hope to improve by establishing feminism itself, a feminism as a positive sisterhood.
Do you see that we're still, I mean, as we said, the 70s and 80s were a very progressive, enthusiastic time. Do you think that still exists, or do you think there's perhaps a little more, are we perhaps going backwards or stagnating perhaps?
I think we've now recognised that something like rape is as prevalent as killing in war. We know that the world is never without a war. Well, the world is also never without rape, without mass raping. And we now know that that's, it's equivalent in terms of the violence. Rape is an equivalent to the violence of warfare. So I think probably what has happened is that our understanding and knowledge of the situation has increased a lot. There's been much more work on it. I mean, I've set up a gender centre here in Cambridge, which is one of the most successful of the departments in the university. And we've definitely learnt more. And that's what the whole point of it was to learn more, because we're in a university. But I think we have learned more, and I think that's always a good thing. But then, of course, as I say, there's always global anti-feminism too, and that learns how to attack women more as well. And I think, yes, well, that's how I see it.
Okay. Do you see any, when you meet young people, young students, perhaps, do you have hope for the future? Do they give you hope?
I think young people always give one hope in some sense. I do think, I mean, I mentioned the Iran before, but yeah. And I think that it's extraordinary, the courage of the women who are still daring to take off their veils, take off their, and the young men who support them. They're terrified. They're absolutely terrified. Rightly, they are going to be killed. There's no question about it. But I think they're unbelievably brave. And I think women have always been brave, but it's visible and it's more widespread in a sense. People not everybody's accepting it.
The original essay had a very strong socialist perspective. Is that something you still believe is valid for the idea that you have? Because the cases you're talking about seem to involve religion and strongly patriarchal societies.
Yes, I think you're asking an interesting question there. I think there is patriarchy as well as capitalism, and that they don't have I think at that time I thought I was trying to make them have the same structure, and they don't have the same structure, and that's why I emphasize that we have to revitalize this concept of oppression, because as oppression should apply, it's because people are like each other that they kill. And in Marxism, it's because they're different. The workers are different from the capitalists, and so it's a conflict. But here, it's actually it's all the women who are killed in marriages or killed in with partnerships. It's very much more prevalent than we ever realised. Me Too is the thing about what was said was Hollywood wasn't. For making films with sexual license on the side. It was for sexual license with films on the side. I mean, that's what Me Too was. It was for women only being sexually abused, not.
Yeah. I mean, oppression is a very important theme in your work, and you talk about killings and rape, but it's more than that, isn't it? How does it? I mean, does it affect people in more privileged situations as well? And
yes, I mean, I'm obviously a privileged person here, but I still wouldn't walk across. I would not walk the same way that you would walk across the field in the evening. It would be crazy, absolutely crazy. I would not be safe.
Your book was issued in Spain last year. I mean, what are your hopes for? There it is. Right.
Very nice, isn't it? It looks nice.
Yes, I mean, and it's obviously evidence that your work is still relevant. What are your hopes for your work in the future? What sort of impact would you hope that it would have?
Well, you asked me if I was still a socialist. I certainly am, but I think that one has to widen the whole concept of socialism, to take into account. I take into account siblings, and I think that siblings are a very important part of the feminist struggle, because it's sisterhood, it's sisters that are put down, it's sisters who are, well, we're always, all women are mothers, either potentially or even if they've chosen to be child-free, they're classified as mothers, and both idealized and also denigrated at the same time. So they get the rotten jobs because they've got children, and then they're glamorized because they're mothers, and that's always a very dangerous combination, to have people who are both demonized and admired as well at the same time is very dangerous.
Professor Mitchell, thank you very much for your time, and it's been a great
Call
honor.
me Juliet.
Juliet, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.